Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is my feature author of the month of October. Award winning author, no other than Miss K. A. Oliver. Welcome, Miss K on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Absolutely. I am an award-winning author, fiction author of the year for 2025, and I started my career actually in Hollywood. I worked in Hollywood for 30 years before stepping out and writing my first book, which is Disturbed Tombs, and I've written 13 other books since then.
And congratulations! And looking forward for more and more award-winning piece, Miss K. And today, let's talk about being you, your writing process, and being award-winning author. So, Miss K, tell us, you describe your writing as both a discipline and an art. What does your non-negotiable daily writing routine look like, and where does spontaneous inspiration fit into structured process?
Absolutely. My daily writing, I write about 1 or 2, maybe 3 hours a day, just because I love writing. I don't plot out my books, what they call a pantser. I do know in my head where it's starting, where it's going to go, and how it's going to end before I start writing. Um, Everyday life adds something. And as you know, if you are familiar with any authors in your life, any writers in your life, anything that happens may be put into a book. Uh, so, I use life. I like real experiences. My characters are based on good friends. I use their first name and they give me a last name that they would like the character to be called, and I use them. I have a full round picture of my friends. I know what they like, what they do, their personalities, and that really helps me flesh out my characters. Um, I love just adding a lot of true facts to my books. I have had readers come back and say, I'll read every one of your books because I learned something new in every book. That means despite a historical genre, which requires a lot of uh, research, my murder mysteries also have true facts about things in the book. So I love doing the research part of it as well.
Interesting, Miss K. Looking back at your acclaimed work, is there a particular chapter or passage you knew was something special as you writing it? Can you describe the feeling of creating something you sense was truly exceptional?
Yes, sometimes even when I go back and read my own writing, because I get so into the zone that I'm a little astonished that that's something I wrote. In the sense of, wow, that's really worded well, or attacks a subject very easily. It's not overpowering. It's not lecturing the reader. It is something that you're reading along and you're thinking, wow, would I have handled that situation that way? And that is often how I write. I kind of get into the journey that I'm writing. I'm going along the journey with my characters. So when I wrote my first book, Disturbed Tombs, I really was somewhat astonished when I look back at it that it was not an easy book to write. I didn't know that at the time, so that's good. But you had to go back and forth between different centuries and different times that were happening, and to put that together in a book is not as easy as just fleshing out a book that's today and happening now. So I am, and that book won 4 awards. So For a first book, that's a pretty astonishing accomplishment.
How do you navigate the ugly first draft? Do you embrace the mess, writing freely, or are you a meticulously editor as you go, ensuring every sentence is polished before moving forward?
Absolutely not. And you can guarantee with my editor, I do not polish. Um, I have writing tips on my website, and one of the things that I say about that is just write. Just free flow write as things come up. You can always change things later. If you think, oh, that scene should have been earlier or that scene should be later, you can do that very easily. I don't worry about typos or anything. I just write as much as I can write. Um, that way, my creative process isn't stopped. I don't finish my day's work at the end of a chapter. I never do that because starting a new chapter is a little harder than picking up from where you left off. So I let my editor do my editing, and my saying is great novels are not written in the first, second, or even third draft. They're written in the edit stage. So that is where I leave that part of it um, to perfecting the book. And my original writing is just get it down and get the writing down.
At what point in the writing process do your characters truly take on a line of their own, surprising you with their decisions and steering the point in unexpected directions, Miss Kay?
They come alive pretty quickly for me because I can see them. I think my experience in Hollywood lets me envision what I'm writing. Even and as a reader, you envision what you're reading, but I know their personality. I know the little things they may or may not do, and so there's times when I'll be writing and I'll think to myself, well, this character would do this at this particular time. And I throw it in. And it might not have anything to kind of do with the scene. It might be, they crack a joke at the most inappropriate time. Or, they decided they're hungry and their stomach's growling and they're going to go get their favorite food. It's making it real. It's making it human. And I really enjoy that part about my characters, so much so that sometimes I have to make sure that I'm not writing me talking or, that I don't say, I thought, da, da, da. Oh, wait, no, this is a book. I have to go back and change that wording. It can't be I thought. And, so I really get into my characters.
Most stories start from a small seed, a image, a line of dialogue, a concept. What was the kernel of your award winning book, and how do you nurture it in a fully formed narrative?
Yeah, so I could really speak to that on my first book. My first book was the seed of, why do we dig up every grave we found in Sudan and in Egypt and dig up every mummy, while our own graveyards are sacred. And I wanted to explore the fact that are we, quote unquote, disturbing their peace as we see it when we dig up our own. And so that's where that came from. Um, Shooter's Treasure is about someone who buys a ranch and there's a hill on the ranch that's out of place, and a lot of people for years thought it was a maybe an Indian burial. And the person who bought the land, the woman who buys the land, is into a bit of archaeology, into geology, and she has a friend that's also into that. They go to examine the hill and find out it's not an Indian grave burial; it is a treasure. Um, and so those kind of things, like what would you do if you found a treasure on your land, and what problems would that cause for you? Um, Whispering Lessons is kind of a reason as to why when you go out to find Jesse James or any other well-known outlaw of the Old West and you can't locate their quote-unquote treasure, their treasure, is there a reason that the treasure is not where you think it should be? And that's where the seed from that book started and created characters that answer that question. a possible solution as to why treasures aren't found.
The voice of the doubt, Miss Skyla, or Miss K. Even for award-winning author, the inner critic never fully disappear. How has your relationship with self-doubt evolved, and what is your strategy for silencing the voice when it matters most?
It, I think it hits you most often very strongly when you write your first book, especially a fiction, because you wonder, will anybody read it? Why would anybody read it? And I think a lot of people who want to write books wonder that. That's a question that we all have. And I just kept trying to silence it by just saying, I want to write the book. There'll be a reader out there somewhere. Yes, there turned out to be readers out there, but that really hits new writers. It fades as you write more books. Um, Maybe sometimes I wonder, to myself, was that book written well enough? You know, um, does it compare to my other books? And that's kind of what I get hit with now, having written 14 books and on my 15th. And, so sometimes I wonder about that. Or I go back and flush out a book better than I did the first time I wrote it because I was a younger writer and I didn't have my voice yet because that comes over time. So I have also done that.
So, Miss K, after completing an intense, emotionally draining project, how do you feel the creative well? What specific activities, rituals help you recover and find inspiration again?
What helps me recover is getting out and, you know, putting my feet to the grass and being out with nature again instead of sitting in front of a computer, which is, normally how you write these days, and just renewing my spirit. I do meditate and I do like doing that. And then I have the other thing is calling up friends and saying, let's go to dinner and getting a group of friends together and just catching up with everybody and having a really good time doing some kind of. This summer was full of different activities that we all did. Each one of us came up with kind of an activity and we did it. And we really had a fun summer, making sure that, you're not losing connections and you're not sitting at home in your pajamas writing all the time. So getting out there and socializing is, and getting new fuel for more books. So yes, that's what I do.
The weight of expectation, Miss K. After winning a major award, does the pressure to live up and standard with your next projects feel paralyzing for motivating? How do you protect the creative space for external expectations?
The funny thing is, with the first book, I expected to win nothing, right? To come back with 4 awards is amazing. So, do I have expectations? There's one book I've never submitted to try for an award on, and otherwise, um, if it happens, it happens. I've accomplished a lot in what one would consider a short amount of time with awards and recognition. And sometimes it comes out of nowhere. Fiction Author of the Year, I didn't apply for. In fact, you can't apply for that one. So when someone calls you up and says, hey, or emails you, sometimes, your first thing is it a scam? 'Cause there's so many scams out there. So, but I've worked with a number of contests and people now that I, trust and will put my books in there and understand what they're looking for and have a good feeling about possibly getting some kind of award. Not guaranteed at all, of course. Um, I write different genres as well. So, I don't fit into a mold at all. So, I never really know how the last book I wrote, which is coming out on the 17th of October, Fear Struck, um, is a completely different novel type. It's a psychological thriller. So, how will that do? I don't know. Is it strong enough to stand in that category? We will find out, right? So
We will
I
find
know
out.
I got a little scared when I was writing it. So uh, I'm
There's a
hoping.
goosebump.
There you go.
Yeah, good luck for that, Miss K. And what is the most significant scene, character, or subplot you ever fallen in love but ultimately had to cut up for a good of the story?
Ooh, I haven't cropped it out. In fact, so my Dr. Callie Worthy series, the character that I fell in love with is the lead character's husband, and his name is Derek. Lead character is Callie. And my readers fell in love with him too. Um, so one of the books is more his story than the other three in that series. And I spent a little time with Derek. And, I made him more the center of that particular novel. Still having, Callie involved and the things that she works on as an archaeologist. But I almost feel sad when I finish writing one of those books because I have to leave the characters behind for a while until I write the next one. And I don't normally write books I don't write book 1, 2, 3, 4 of a series normally. I have 2 series right now, and I'm working on my 3rd one. And I would write, the Callie Worthy series, and then I'd go over to the Shaw's Investigation series and write that 2nd book. Then I'd come back to Callie Worthy and write the 3rd book, and then I go back over to the Shaw's. And for me, I do that to keep the storyline straight in my head. Because if I start writing, book 1, 2, 3, and 4, I start to kind of go, was that in book 2? Or am I ahead of myself? So I bounce back and forth. However, with Fear Struck, I'm not sure if I've gotten to that point. I'm already writing the book number 2 for that series. So there, I broke my own rule.
Risque on the craft and technique. Your writing is often praised for its vivid and immersive quality. How do you consistently engage all 5 senses during the writing process to make a fictional world feel tangible and real?
I think part of that I'm able to do because of my background in entertainment. And because I started as a video editor in the film industry, or an editor in the film industry, and putting the puzzle together, that you're putting the puzzle pieces together along with the story that's written in that case, I just feel that bringing a lot of life into a film or into a book is important. So, the smells, the way a room looks, the cracking of the floor when you walk, the footfalls that you hear when someone's walking across a certain type of tile versus wood floor. And I just think that gives it that authenticity that you need to make a fiction feel real, because you also need facts. So you need to add facts to the book that are true facts, but the main story is fictional. So you need to bring those in to make the story feel alive.
Alive for sure. And Miss K, as award-winning author, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Short term is to finish my next book that I'm writing and have a successful launch with the book one that's coming out on the 17th, and to continue writing. Um, a lot of people ask me, how do you come up with all these different stories? And it's just living life, feeling it, wondering, asking questions. And then when I'm a very curious person to begin with, and I've always, what about this? And I'll go look it up and try to figure out whatever the question is. And a lot of those questions can turn into books and stories. And so it's just to continue writing. I have one book, Road to Elysium, that producers are looking at to make a movie out of. It's been shopped around and some producers have asked for it. But going back to Hollywood, I just say, here's the script and do what you need to do with it. I'm not concerned about going back into Hollywood or actually turning a book to a movie, but they are good stories for movies. So if that happens, that happens. That would be icing on the cake. But my thing is just writing the books. I get a huge kick out of going on this journey. And any writer will tell you that part of them is in every book they write. So part of me is in every one of these books. People have come back who know me well and said, "Oh, you're this character, aren't you?" But then they read the next book and they go, "But this is also you." So it's just to continue writing. I love being acknowledged. That's also icing on the cake. But to have more fans and more people enjoy the books would be probably my ultimate goal.
Good luck to your goals, Miss Kay, and looking forward for more award-winning plays. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
Well, if they want to be a writer, first thing they have to do is write. I have so many people tell me, "Oh, I've got this book in my mind," but have you sat down and started writing? Even if you're writing 15 minutes a day, make a space for yourself. I bought a new desk when I started writing. I put a plant on the side. It's facing a window. When I'm typing, I can look outside and see the world, and that was important to me. And you start writing 15, 20 minutes a day. And you don't worry about what you're writing. Like I said, get it down on paper. You might want to write a novella for your first book. I did. Um, the novella is a smaller book, and then you can go through the process of getting someone who can do the cover. Don't do it all by yourself. Don't try to AI a cover. Everybody goes, "That's AI." And there's things wrong with that. It's not, the covers aren't, they don't really capture your book like an artist can capture your book. Make sure you find an editor who likes your genre, who likes your writing style. You might go through a couple. That's okay. Um, and then get that book out. If you self-publish, that's great. There is a lot of help online for self-publishing. I have writers tips on my website, which happens to be my name, Kaya Oliver.com. And they're free. You don't even have to give me your email. Um, on how to write, how to build a character, how to choose a character's name. All of that is important when you're writing a book. You want the name of the character. Hannibal, the Silence of the Lamb. I mean, that name, creates fear now, right? Because it was a well-chosen name. So that's important. And, don't worry the first book or two you write. Um, if you want to find a publisher, then that's a lot harder work. Get ready for rejections. You have to learn how to write a query letter. You need to find out when they are taking queries, meaning taking on, reading books and things. And then, get your books out there. Don't be afraid of, going back and, making them better if you write in the second, third, or fourth book, because your first book won't, may not be your best. Um, so, make sure that you have people surround you who will encourage you. Get rid of those naysayers. But the main thing is start writing. You have to get disciplined in writing and getting it down. And, if you're a plotter, then write out what you need to do in the book. If you're like me, just start writing. So that is my advice.
Well, thank you for the empowering advice, Miss Kay. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Uh, that influenced my journey? Well, I'm a big Clive Clusler reader. So he does the Jack Ryan series. I really like his books because he doesn't spend tons of time describing a scene. Like Dean Koontz spends a lot of time describing a scene, and I'm ready to move. I'm ready to see the action. So my books are full of action, regardless if they are a cozy mystery, a psychological thriller, or historical fiction. I like action. So my books are full of action. Loves Calculating Risk is an action book. Some people try to say it's a romance book because they get together at the end, but it's a woman doing the action and taking on a cartel and old coworker that, screwed around with the books and trying to save a client of hers. So action, action, action is my thing. So that's where I tend to write into all of my books.
Thank you for the recommended book, Miss Kay. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well, geography 101 fourth season, and my baby podcast. Law 101 and Mental Health 101, Love Letters in third season, and Movie 101 Review of Music 101 and fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its fourth season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Miss K, beyond awards and critical acclaim, what is the personal private metric you use to know that a piece of work is truly finished and successfully in your own eye? On ice.
In my own eyes is when I feel the story is complete, when I feel I've given my creativity to it, that I put my best foot forward, that I've put action into it, and I, feel confident about the story I have written. Then I feel this is a good one. So the one that's coming out on the 17th, my first psychological thriller, I feel good about. I have that feeling. It's like my baby's being delivered. So that's why I've jumped into book 2, because I had so much fun writing it, even though it's scary, that I couldn't wait to write the next book.
Yes. Looking forward for that, Miss Kay. And one more. In what tangible ways did winning a major award change the trajectory of the specific book? Its reach, its audience, or its longevity?
A little bit of both, but definitely audience. People like to know that a book has won an award, 2, 3, or up to 10 for one of my books. And that's, and you put that on the cover a little bit, and that impresses them to pick up the book and find out what you're about. And I am thankful for every award that I have won.
Miss Kay Oliver, my award-winning and my feature author of the month of October. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Absolutely. My books are on Amazon, but you can also go to my website, Oliver, Kaya Oliver.com. And you can also find my social media links on that website, as well as the writing tips. And you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Pinterest, you name it.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Kay Oliver. Because if you support her, for sure, more and more and more empowering award-winning piece to come. So, Miss Kay, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me on as a guest. I appreciate it.
More to come, people. See you soon.